fuck had happened to the Wi-Fi? My Wi-Fi crashed briefly, so it crashed the stream. I'm waiting for the shit to kick back up.
Autobots, welcome to the Proud Star, the great ship of Nova Prime.
It can't be! You mean an Autobot ship is responsible for all the destruction in the city?
It appears so, Wheeljack. But I doubt it was an Autobot hand that caused the destruction.
Another Cybertronian ship crashed on Earth? What are the odds?
Nova Prime's mission was to preserve our culture. The Colonnade of Cybertron was a covenant between all Cybertronians. The Colonnade is comprised of the essential aspects of our lost Cybertronian heritage, and it was placed inside the Pharaoh-Taxis, the supercomputer that controls the Proud Star. The Pharaoh-Taxis literally carries our culture inside of it.
What an historical find that would be. So much art and beauty and history has been lost. To find it again.
The Pharaoh-Taxis controls both the Plasma Core and the Insecticons. It directs the power and gives the Insecticons their function and purpose.
Okay, so we find the Pharaoh-Taxis and what? Destroy it? It's got so much of our culture in it. We can't do that, can we?
No, we can't. We find the plasma core and shut it down. Shutting down the power is the most surefire way to stop the cyberforming.
Then we locate the Pharaoh-Taxis and preserve our culture, as Nova Prime intended. But for now, stay focused. There are more floors to this ship. We split up and locate the plasma core.
Whoa! That's a lot of them!
What is it?
Oh, what the fuck?
Felt like the Matrix itself just blinked off and then back on. There is a darkness here. Something that has permeated this place. And the Cybertronians who lived here. We will deal with it later. We must.
Wow. Ominous much?
Soundwave.
Fuck, you oversized this setback. Where's Megatron?
You do not need to know.
Hey, watch the paint! Here's my retort!
Soundwave, I need you here. The others can take care of them.
Understood. Abort mission.
Hey, get back here!
Megatron has taken control of the ship and the Ferrotaxis that operates it. He now commands the Insecticons.
Maybe if we blow that Pharaoh what's-it up, it'll stop Megatron.
No. We go to the plasma core and disable it. The Ferrotaxis has the sum total of Cybertronian culture recorded within. If at all possible, we must preserve it.
Insecticons are attacking again! They're coming from the pods! Oh, gross! Sucker! Never stood a chance. figure out how. Whoever designed this ship.
Damn Insecticons. Get off my ship.
Come and get it. There's plenty for everybody.
I got them the fuck off my back.
Somehow.
Scrapnel.
It appears the plasma energy is increasing the Insecticon strength.
That thing's huge.
Oh shit, we both fell off. Shit. Remember everybody, all dislikes don't count and are disingenuous. So they're irrelevant.
Cybertronian sideswipe. Beware the coming tide of chaos. Your very nature will be tested, and an abyss will present itself to you. Face it with courage, and you will live. Face it with anger, and the fates are not so kind.
Have you been talking to my brother? Because you sound just like him.
Shit.
Guys, we might have a problem. With the unpredictability of plasma energy, there's a chance that if we blow it up, it'll take half of Earth with it.
Define chance.
My figures aren't precise, but at current calculations, roughly 92.787% chance it will detonate.
Okay, don't break the plasma core. Understood. Looks like I get to go through you. I'm embarrassed for you.
Oh shit. Oh, got auto repair, thank God.
No time to lose. Capture that plasma core. Breaking the crystal shielding and ripping it out. Admittedly, you've gotten further than I expected, Autobot. The Insecticon? Oh, that's some serious power! Oh, please, don't give up already. The shielding is breaking! Almost there!
The core is becoming unstable. It will explode. If this continues, the whole room is likely to explode shortly.
What? We need to get the core out of here now. Maybe that'll calm the reaction. Let's break open that shielding now. Insecticons, hurry up and eat him!
Are you serious? What kind of logic does she have?
I would have not let you put one rusty finger on it after the...
The ship is powered down for now. But if we allow Megatron to retrieve the plasma core before we find it, our victory here will not matter. We must move quickly.
Yeah, she does. The Proud Star.
What's the plan, Optimus?
For the time being, the cyberforming has slowed. But Megatron will undoubtedly go after the plasma core to start it again.
And it sprung a leak before it ejected. Even if Megatron never gets it, we still have to shut it down.
We should scan for Deceptor creep activity. That plasma core eject button wasn't targeted. Megatron's gonna need someone to go pick it up.
Split up and find a Decepticon.
And we gotta find him like we gotta jump him. Dislikes are fake, Chris. That's funny. Oh shit.
Looks like most of the cyberforming is stopped. Not all of it. It's continuing on reserves. And the Ferrotaxis is still fully operational.
I gotta get out of here.
Thundercracker! Can't miss that guy!
That motherfucker Thundercracker.
Today is a good day to join our cause, Thundercracker.
My loyalty only goes so far. Tampering with plasma energy? That's madness.
Wow, that took like no convincing at all. No wonder they call you Thunder Cracker.
Very funny, Pipsqueak. No one should have that thing. You want to get it, that's fine. So long as you promise to get rid of it.
I think we can handle that.
It's on the island. Megatron sent Blitzwing after it. You're closer, so you might be able to beat him there.
I know the island. Only way onto it is across Liberty Bridge.
Sounds like fun.
Blitzwing. Yeah, but those who hate it are still just gonna go based off what they see and not watch. You know that. Oh shit. Wow, he just fucking spammed the spin attack on my ass the whole time. I couldn't even hit the reflect button. Every time he fucking hit me, it broke the reflect button. Wow. What a fucking deceptive dick. Okay, I hit the reverse button. How the fuck did he pull? It's like this motherfucker is not jumping till after he gets hit. You stupid fuck. And it's not slowing down time. What the hell? It's supposed to slow down when I dodge. There you go. Why did it finally take him a fucking minute to dodge it? Gotcha, mother. Oh, hell, he broke that. No way. Fucker. Oh, shit. Another one. Damn Decepticons are getting on my nerves. At least I got him now. Shit.
They're setting up defenses around the island. Why not just move the plasma core?
Probably trying to patch that leak before they move it. That's what I do.
I think I might have a plan. We passed red energon back a ways. That stuff goes boom. Megatron 1, scan for red energon.
Scanning. There are 2 caches nearby. Warning. Decepticon activity detected. Maintaining visual surveillance.
Oh shit, I gotta do it like this.
Got it. Heading back to the bridge.
Further analysis suggests that this energon has regenerative properties. After exploding, it will regenerate for multiple uses.
Oh, this is bullshit.
I'm embarrassed for you.
Oh, this punk bitch. Starscream.
I've long waited for the day I could fight you all myself. Prove my worth to Megatron.
Oh yeah. Try it. Never stood a chance.
Overconfident fool! Away with you!
You're headed for the great deer in the sky!
I'll blast you back to the Bronze Age! Time to die! Another day, Adolf.
Shut up already!
They're full of poopy pants people. Those people, poopy pantses.
Blitzwing!
There it is.
Oh, I'm gonna feed you your own spark, Autobots!
Let's go! Blitzwing's not down yet.
You got that right, Auto Scum!
Blitzwing! You're tougher than you look!
No more fooling around! My turn!
never stand a chance.
Careful, everybody. That lightning could be lethal.
Wheeljack, find a way to get that thing off the planet. I don't want it on Earth any longer than necessary.
Hey! Starscream taking the core wasn't a part of any of my ideas!
That coward!
What's wrong with it?
We were unable to repair the leak before Starscream took it.
Meaning?
Detonation imminent.
Can it be repaired?
Accessing Teletron Alpha.
The Proud Star's plasma core was forged in the plasma energy chambers on Cybertron. Only at a plasma energy interface on Cybertron can it be repaired.
Starscream, you must bring it to the tower immediately. The core is unstable.
Unstable? Oh, you don't say.
Starscream is taking the plasma core back to the city. We have no time to waste.
She's trying it!
Decepticons approaching from the city.
Out of the way, blockhead! embarrassed for you. Gotta move. Headshot! Hold your applause! Never stood a chance. Hey, watch the paint! I'm embarrassed for you.
This thing is getting harder to can't control where I'm going.
Get me, Motormaster!
Teletran 1, I need coordinates on Starscream.
Routing, based on Starscream's last known trajectory. I'm sending probable coordinates now.
Last one there's the corroded diode Autobots!
Motormaster, don't let him get there first.
gotcha! Give it up already!
I suggest you stand down.
Ah! Never gonna happen, Prime! With the core leaking, I should be able to rig something together to get a directional fix on the plasma energy. Based on earlier readings of the core's power signature, I think we can track it now. Your sensors... Fascinating! Let me see! This is legendary! I think I see what we can make with these. Sometimes I impress myself.
device's readings again. You are moving away from the core. Please check the device's readings again.
I see it, under the rubble.
The crack in that casing is getting bigger. I think I can patch the leak temporarily, if I can just get to it.
We do not have time.
We better make time. Plasma energy is unpredictable. It could explode, cause gravitational rifts, warp a wormhole into existence.
Open the case and patch the core. We will hold off any foes.
Never stood a chance.
I'm leaking all over! They're on me! Help!
Headshot! Hold your applause!
The case is open.
beat Master. Now, see if you can beat me!
I did not see that coming.
Oh, Starscream! You survived. Everyone into the space bridge! To Cybertron! Except you, Starscream. You stay here and burden the Autobots with your incompetence!
Laugh while you can, Megatron! But I will laugh last!
They have gone through the space bridge. After them!
Autobot! Time to die!
Hey, watch the pace! Here's my retort! A little to the left. A smidge more. That's got it.
Help me up.
Will you never learn, Megatron? Annihilation of an inhabited planet is not what our ancestors wanted.
How little you really know. Hey! You auto buckets go no further!
Out of the way, blockhead!
Welcome to Cybertron.
Shockwave! Plasma energy is uncontrollable!
We will control the plasma energy. And once we do, the plasma core will save Cybertron, not doom it. Gotta move.
You failed to stop me again, Autobot.
Do you bad guys ever realize how insane your plans are?
It was Nova Prime himself who recognized the need to cyberform populated worlds.
Decepticon lies.
Once the cyberforming starts, I don't know how we can stop it.
We can't just give up.
That thought never occurred to me, Bumblebee.
Soundwave, bring the plasma core online. Constructicons, is the Ferrotaxis fully operational?
Operational and already doing its work.
Excellent. In less than one Earth day, there will be no more Earth days.
Patched! Let's move it!
The plasma core is in overdrive, and it's powering the Insecticons. We've got to find a way to shut it down. Too late! The core rupture is distorting it. Shoddy Constructicon repair has failed. The leak is causing a gravitational anomaly that's sucking us in.
Burn rubber!
this. The core is going critical. It's gonna keep on pumping out more and more power until it blows.
How bad?
Planetary extinction. No one escapes.
The Insecticons and the plasma core are but 2 of 3 components.
The Ferrotaxis!
Though it contains much of our lost culture, destroying it could save Earth.
Megatron has Ferrotaxi!
Intruders detected. Activating security system.
Looks like Soundwave figured out how to get behind the security. What the heck was that? Soundwave sabotaged the lift! The nerve of that guy!
That's our only way to the Ferrotaxis. Somebody check the control panel.
As we thought, it's busted.
Leave it to me.
Begin attack. Phase 1.
Wheeljack, keep repairing. It appears we have company.
The reason people rarely see me is because I'm too busy running around my side. Once again,
Welcome back, Autobots and Decepticons, to another episode of Fixing Transformers. In today's we're going to take a look at why Megatron became weaker throughout the later films. So without further ado, let's jump right in. So as a brief recap, Megatron in the first Transformers movie was a powerhouse that did not let anything or anyone stand in his way. He threw Optimus around like a rag doll and was only stunned, with Sam put the Allspark in Megatron's chest. Now people say that Optimus was holding back on fighting off Megatron due to how many humans being in the area, and I can agree with this to an extent. But a weird argument faced where some people believe that Optimus at this time was stronger than Megatron, and and this is where I disagree. Earlier in the film, we learned that Optimus is willing to sacrifice himself and the cube if he can't stop Megatron. Now, the reason I find this as an interesting point is because, as we learned when we first met the Autobots, Megatron led to Cybertron's downfall, which means the Autobots lost to the Decepticons. So it's safe to say that Optimus has lost in a battle with Megatron before, leading him to want to make the ultimate sacrifice so Megatron will be able to get the Allspark and take over the galaxy. So that tangent out of the way, I hope it justifies the argument that Optimus in the first film was nowhere as strong as Megatron. But this is where the tables are turned. In the second film, we see how Optimus obliterates Megatron in combat, and his most apparent in fourth battle, where we see Megatron getting beaten up and needing to call in backup, which Optimus also destroys. So why is Megatron a lot weaker? Well, it goes down to two factors. His new body,
what the fuck?
His training. So let's start off with the new body. And the point I see a lot of people overlook is, as we saw with his Revenge of the Fallen design, is completely different from his 07 one. And Megatron's going to have to deal with a lot of weight distribution, especially in battle. As you can see, his whole right arm is much bigger than his left, when he has his fusion cannon out. And this isn't a problem that he had to face with his 07 body. Because of his old fusion cannon, he put all of its weight in the center mass of his body, giving him an overall better stability along with reduced recoil. And his secondary pistol weapon didn't even weigh him down. And it doesn't help when Megatron has a smaller arm to counterbalance his massive fusion cannon. And this can be proven when we see Grinder get his arm sliced off. We see it fly towards Megatron, and due to the impact, it causes him to turn away. But that's not all. If we look closely, it brings Megatron to his knees. And this is because of his cannon being too big, due to the weight as it swings back. Because of the impact...
Oh my god, this bitch is so fucking close to him.
Dodging Grinder's arm, but this is where I have to disagree, since Megatron was trying to tank the hit, it is proved because he still takes a shot. And if he was planning to dodge the arm, he would have just blocked instead of taking the shot. It also doesn't...
Yo, that's fucking... Yo, game breaking. That bitch was supposed to be distracted on me, even when I'm near him.
This I'm gonna have to say no.
He's not supposed to focus on Wheeljack if I'm close.
And when Optimus pulls out his swords, Megatron gets his ass handed to him and calls for backup. But to further prove my point, when Megatron gets a drop on Prime, for some reason he decides to open up his arms for a hug, and then he gets slashed. Now this I'm truly confused about. But later in the battle we see him pull out his blade, and then in the next shot is retracted back into gun form, which leads me to conclude that Megatron wasn't confident with his sword weapon and preferred to gun over. And the only time he does use his sword effectively is...
They should freaking give you a checkpoint here in phase 2, because Wheeljack is...
disadvantages the new body gives him. The main reason why Megatron is much weaker is because he's not used to his new body. Let me explain. Megatron has been fighting for millions of years in his 07 body, and has upgraded to his strengths. And now all of a sudden he's put into this brand new body that has none of his original weapons, and has a huge weight distribution issue. And it's not like Megatron gets his issues fixed, since as soon as he was revived he had to go up against Optimus. And I think he knew that he wasn't fully trained in his new body, so he pre-planned to back up with Starscream and Grinder once he got Optimus alone. And this takes me to my next point, Optimus' training. I believe during the time between the first and second film, Optimus is trained to be better at fighting, so if Megatron ever came back, he would be able to stop him. And this is apparent in his sword combat. In the first film, we only see him use his swords once to take out Bone Crusher, and after that, they were never seen again, up until the later films, where he adopted his sword weapon as his primary weapon. So if Megatron going up a much harder Optimus in his new body, it led him to struggle some naturally in the fight. I'd also like to add that Prime is going to protect Sam at all costs, since with that...
Oh my god, these guys are blocking the... with their fucking... shields.
In contrast to the 07 film, where he was fighting to protect Sam and the Allspark, it was a 1v1 where he got destroyed, and thanks to the military and Sam putting the cube in Megatron's chest, it led to a victory. So definitely after knowing he would not be...
Oh my god, he keeps switching back before I get the hit.
He'd have to train as hard as he could to turn the tides of that outcome. And that's why we see Optimus last so long in a 3v1. At the final battle of Revenge of the Fallen, Megatron actually tries to use some new tactics. He uses his weight and his jet boosters to get Prime off of the Fallen, but backfires once Prime gets the upper hand on him, breaking his fusion cannon along through his face, and then sending him through a wall, which would end Megatron's role in the fight. Now once we get to Dark of the Moon, not much has changed. He's still recovering from his injuries and has ditched his unreliable fusion cannon and swapped it for a shotgun. Now if you watch my How Megatron Got Rebuilt video, you would know the reason why he swapped his cannon for the shotgun was to prevent getting shot in the face. But I believe there's also a second reason. Remember how I said that 07 Megs uses weapon intelligently to reduce recoil? Well, the way Megatron holds a shotgun is somewhat similar. With his initial 2 shots, he uses his shoulder to reduce recoil, similar to his strategy in TF1, and the proper setup is seen again when he's getting charged at by an angry Optimus Prime. So going back to the topic of this video, the reason why Megatron got substantially because of all the disadvantages that he got, from being reborn into an unfamiliar body, and having to fight off a more experienced Optimus, and while at the same time dealing with his injuries that he sustained from his last battle. It goes to show that Megatron just got the short end of the stick, and I want to point out that Megatron is not weak physically. As we saw in Revenge of the Fallen, he survived a blast to his own face, along with surviving many stab wounds to his joints. It's his fighting style that gets affected with his Revenge of the Fallen Dark of the Moon body, making him appear to be weaker. But I'm not going to end the video here, since in the later two films, if you believe it or not, Megatron actually gets much stronger. Let me explain. In Age of Extinction, Megatron gets a chance to build his dream body thanks to the resources at KSI. And it's not a coincidence that his first movie schematics appears here, since he based his new body off of his original one. And of course, gave it a few bells and whistles. For example, the hole in his chest. And I have to give credit to the Fire Brothers for pointing this out. The hole in the chest is not just for design, it actually serves a purpose. That purpose being to disarm Optimus of his Energon blades. As we saw in their fight, Galvatron grabs Optimus' sword and shoves it into his chest, breaking it. Now why would Megatron want to do that? Well, if we look back at Revenge of the Fallen, he was easily countered by Optimus' Energon blades, and for Dark of the Moon, Optimus' Energon axe. But to prove my point how Megatron was stronger in Age of Extinction than in Dark of the Moon, take a look at the fight between Optimus and Galvatron. At the beginning of that fight, Galvatron gets upper hand on Prime, throwing him around like he did back in 2007. And remember, Optimus still has around the same strength level as he did in Dark of the Moon, and Megatron is putting it to shame. Now to be fair, Megatron does have an advantage up his sleeve, that being in his Transformium Galvatron state, which appears to make him invincible. This is proven when Optimus says to Galvatron that he has no soul, and if Galvatron was responding with, that's why I have no fear. And with this no fear, it can lead Galvatron to do riskier moves without getting penalized for them. Basically, since he's invincible, he can do whatever he wants in a fight, even if he would not normally do it. Now eventually Optimus does get the upper hand on Galvatron, but we never get to see how the fight would have played out, since KSI pulled Galvatron out to let Lockdown finish the job. And you could say that Optimus was holding back due to Tessa being there, but I have to disagree, since in the fourth battle, Optimus destroyed Megatron's Star Treatment Grinder, with Sam being a mere few feet away from him. I would also like to point out with the Galvatron design, it fixes the weight distribution issue, with both arms being the same size, even when he has his cannon out. And the cannon does not hinder any of the movement like his fusion cannon did in Revenge of the Fallen. The Galvatron design also has these blade weapons. Now this is important because once he breaks Prime's blades, he can use these mini blades to cut him up. This moves me into my next point, Megatron's fighting style. Megatron is mainly a brawler, and this design complements that. Like his 07 design, it's proportional all around. We know he's a brawler due to how he throws his opponents around. In the first film with Optimus...
Oh wow, what a bitch, he knocked me off.
And instead of using his gun as a ranged weapon, he instead used it to smack Prime and then to grab him with his other arm, tossing him through the trees. And of course in Dark of the Moon where he kicks and throws Sentinel Prime around. Now my last point with Galvatron is, the reason why most people classify him as weak in my opinion is because we barely got to see what he could do in the film. And if Megatron's downward spiral after TF1, it's easy to conclude that Galvatron will be weak too. But I hope with my spin on things it shows the complete opposite. But now let's finalize Megatron's journey in Transformers The Last Night, by exploring his fighting style, seeing if he got better or worse. And a video will be coming out soon explaining what happened to Galvatron, so stay tuned. But moving back onto the topic at hand, we sadly didn't get to see much of Megatron in the film, but for what we did see, he was in a brand new body given to him by Quintessa. And as we saw in the film, this version of Megatron has a proper fusion cannon that is connected onto his arm. And from what we saw in the film, it doesn't look like it weighs him down. And in fact, it can transform inside of his arm if he doesn't need it. He is also equipped with a battle axe. And for what we saw in the film, he knows how to use it, which could be a callback to Revenge of the Fallen, where he struggled with that particular blade, and wanted to correct that mistake to be able to last longer in the sword battle of Optimus. But how does he compare in strength? Well, for what we saw in the film, he was a force to be reckoned with. His blast was able to shoot Hound back and cause a massive explosion, which is a direct parallel from 2007, where he was able to send Optimus flying back into a building of one shot. And with his blade weapon, if it wasn't for Hot Rod, Megatron would have sliced the big boy in half. And if it wasn't for Prime, Bumblebee would have been killed. And his appearance, we can clearly see Bumblebee's body language, that he has no clue what he's gonna do. And you could say that Bumblebee would have survived the blast, which is in the realm of possibility since Hound didn't die to it, but the force of the blast would have sent Bumblebee through the ignition chamber. And since Bumblebee has no sort of flight mode, it's safe to say that he would have splatted on the ground. But what I find most impressive that proves that he still has his strength is when he gets his arm chopped off. He doesn't panic, and with his one arm he overpowers Prime. And the only reason why he lost that fight is because Prime caught him off guard monologuing, sending him through the ignition chamber wall. And I like to think that this scene was a callback to Revenge of the Fallen, where once he got his primary weapon taken off, he didn't know what to do. And instead of panicking like he did in Revenge of the Fallen by standing still, in The Last Night he still fights. Now before I go, I would like to say the real world reason why Megatron in the films was cast a second fiddle. And that was because in every movie besides the first, there was a new big baddie. In Revenge of the Fallen, it was the Fallen, in Dark of the Moon Sentinel, in Age of Extinction Lockdown, and in The Last Night, Quintessa and Nemesis Prime. And just like that, that's why Megatron became weaker in the later films. And as always, if you enjoyed this theory in the Fixing Transformers collection, please give a like rating because it helped the channel a lot. And as always, Spin Trans Theories remind you guys to never stop theorizing. transparency?
Are you even trying to stop them?
I will see to it personally.
Welcome back, Autobots and Decepticons, to another episode of Fixing Transformers. Today's going to take a look at how did Megatron get rebuilt in Dark of the Moon. Without further ado, let's jump right in. During Operation Firestorm, better known as the Battle of Egypt, which took place in Revenge of the Fallen, Megatron gets critically wounded during his battle of Optimus Prime. When trying to fire at Prime, Prime snaps Megatron's fusion cannon arm back at him, breaking it, along with grabbing the top of Megatron's head and shoving it at the barrel of his own gun. Due to the immense pain in his right arm, it caused Megatron to shoot out an energy blast at his own face, and this blast nearly kills him. It takes out the right side of his head along with his eye. But this is not all. He would also get his right arm severed, along with getting shot by Optimus's afterburners, which sent Megatron through his sandstone wall, ending his role in the battle. Badly damaged, Megatron called out for Starscream in agony, but it soon mattered little as Optimus Prime killed the Fallen. Horrified at the demise of his master, Megatron acknowledged Starscream's advice that they should flee, but vowed that this isn't over. 3 years after the Battle of Egypt, Dark of the Moon takes place. We can see that Megatron has severely recovered from his wounds. Most of his face is fixed, but still some damages on the right side of his head. And we can see many scalpel units trying to fix it. We can also see that Megs has a brand new arm that replaces his fusion cannon arm, a new shotgun weapon along with a cloak to hide his scars of his battle with Optimus Prime. But most significantly, we can see that Megatron has a brand new look, since he scanned a brand new alternate form, a Mac M915 LHRT, along with an M970 fuel tanker that was attached to it. And if all these upgrades and fixes, it leaves one question. How was Megatron able to get rebuilt? Well, shortly after the Autobots and military left the area to return to USA, Megatron and Starscream headed back to Egypt to scout for any survivors. Soundwave would join in on the search party, since earlier in Revenge of the Fallen, after he helped transmit the Fallen's message, he would make his way to Earth where he would scan a black Chevy Silverado as a temporary vehicle. And this can be proven because of this early work-in-progress Soundwave concept art. Now note that Soundwave's design in Dark of the Moon would be the same design for the Silverado form, so the grill would become his chest instead of his belly, and the head that he has here would instead be the one that we saw in Revenge of the Fallen. So basically, if Dark of the Moon Soundwave's design was a Silverado, and the story behind this weird Soundwave concept art was that Soundwave was planned to appear on Earth, but that idea was sadly scrapped due to the writer strike. But I'm going to use that scrap storyline in this video, since it will help set up my future Soundwave timeline video that I have in the works, so stay tuned for that. But back on the Megatron search party, the 3 Decepticons scouted the area. Soundwave would eject Laserbeam to help on the hunt to get a bird's eye view. The Decepticons surprisingly found quite a few survivors when they found Devastator's corpse. Those Decepticons being Scrapper, Payload, Long Haul Hightower, Buckethead, and Skipjack. And they were trying to reactivate their fallen comrades with no luck at all. And if you want to see what became of them, check out my Constructicon Misconceptions 2.0 video for more info. But besides the remaining Constructicons, there was one more Decepticon that the scout team found, the Long Haul clone, which is being remangled together by Scalpel, using just the head and the spark. And this creation will be deemed Igor. And if you want to learn more, please check out my Scalpel and Igor videos respectively, since they go hand in hand with this one. But back on the Megatron, once the Decepticons were done scouting the area, they would make a temporary camp to fix up Megs, and they would focus on the critical wounds, the first one being his right arm. And I theorized that they would bring back a severed arm from a protoform to be used as Megatron's new arm. But now you may be saying, Trans, how could Megatron just slap on a new arm and be just fine? Well, this has actually been done before. If you look at Transformers The Last Night, Squeaks gets his arm shot off, and it's later replaced by a spare Decepticon arm, thanks to the help of Izzy. And if you note, this arm is from a completely different body, but yet it's still compatible for Squeaks to use. And if you want to have an original trilogy example, take a look at Starscream. In the fourth battle, Prime chops Screamer's arm off, but later Starscream's able to put it back on. So this concept of putting on new limbs is not that far-fetched. And if you watch my Constructicon Misconceptions 2.0 video, then you would know that Scrapper uses the same analogy when he becomes Trench. But moving back on to Megatron, the way to got his new arm on was thanks to the help of the lens meter drones. Now if you watch my Scalpel video, you know who exactly these guys are. But if you didn't, they are clones of Scalpel, and they serve as his assistants. And the way to got to Egypt to help out Megatron was thanks to the help of Soundwave. And shortly after the drones were ejected, Scalpel would use them to help attach Megatron's new arm, welding it securely in place. Then they would start to tend to the wounds around Megatron's body, some going for the head and fixing his optic, and others going to the legs and chest. So basically all over Megatron's body, repairing him. But these injuries would take a while to fix. Megatron, being mainly concerned with having a new arm, activated the next stage of his plan that was long in the works, Project Sentinel. Although this name is not canon, I'll be using it as a term for Megatron's reconstruction plan in Dark of the Moon. But moving back onto Megs, after going on to the next phase, Soundwave and Laserbeak would leave to go back to the United States to keep tabs on their NASA friends. And the Constructicons would go into hiding all around the globe, some of which would be hunted down by Nest. But for Megatron and Screamer, Megs would tell Starscream to bring back some hatchlings from the Nemesis to serve as future soldiers. And as Starscream went for takeoff, it was just Megs, the Scaffolds, and Igor who were left. Now Megatron would make his way through the harsh African desert, always staying in the shadows, and eventually accepted that if he wanted to make this journey a lot faster and more bearable, he would need an alternate mode. Now note that Megatron could not transform into his tank mode due to how badly damaged he was, along with the fact that he had a new arm. And I theorized during his trip across Africa, he would stumble upon an abandoned truck that had a fuel tanker attached to it. Now the truck was very rusty, it had a tarp over it along with ropes and chains, but Megatron would take what he could get and scan the vehicle. But before he transformed, he took the tarp from it and put it over his head, to be used to hide the shameful scars that he received by the hands of Optimus Prime. And just like that, he would transform and travel across Africa, looking for energon sources, until he would end up in a camp in Namibia. Now before I go into why I picked Namibia as camp, I want to clear up the confusion with the Dark of the Moon prequel game. As we saw in that game, Megatron scans a truck in his missile silo base, and he already has his Dark of the Moon arm with the tires on it attached to his Revenge of the Fallen body, which would not be possible, along with it transforming into a fusion cannon, which is not possible either because that cannon arm was destroyed in the final battle of Revenge of the Fallen. And Megatron would not want to use that weapon for a second time, and I'll go into more detail about that in a bit. Now also in the game, there's a version of the truck has bull horns, which we never saw in the film, along with Megatron not having a trailer, and the trailer is part of his body, so it would not be possible for Megatron just to be a truck. He would also need his entire trailer to accommodate for his size. And the Dark of the Moon Megatron render already has a change which comes from the trailer portion of the truck, and this is not all the inconsistencies with the Dark of the Moon game. And I'll be doing a video in the future to see if it's canon or not, so stay tuned for that. But with the game out of the way, let's talk about why Megatron has Mad Max spikes all over his vehicle mode. And the reason why he has them is because he added them. Let me explain. When a Transformer scans a vehicle mode, they can choose to add modifications to it. Look at Optimus Prime, for example, in Transformers Age of Extinction. Optimus scans a completely white truck, and instead of matching its color and being white, he would use his old color scheme from his old Peterbilt truck, along with adding various upgrades like new smokestacks and an Autobot logo. So basically taking the base truck he scanned, a Western Star 4900 SB, and creating his own modified version, which doesn't even exist, and the closest thing to it is a Western Star 5700 XE. And that truck came out 3 months after Transformers Age of Extinction was released, to look like the Optimus Prime truck. So how can we put this in Megatron's case? Well, as we saw with Prime, I theorized Megatron would give himself the upgrade of spikes to look more menacing, and to be used as a weapon to clear stuff out of his path. But now let's talk about why Megatron chose Namibia as his base of operations. And the reason for this was because there was a few small patches of energon around the area. In Dark of the Moon, we see Megatron drive up to his base. We can determine that he went somewhere because he's returning to his base. We later see him feed the hatchling some substance. This substance I conclude to be energon for two reasons. Reason one being, we learned in Revenge of the Fallen for the hatchlings to develop, they need energon.
Without more energon, the hatchlings will keep dying.
Now in Dark of the Moon, we see these hatchlings have some type of color to them, unlike the ones that were in Revenge of the Fallen. So these hatchlings have somewhat developed. And I believe to keep them developed, they would need energon so they could eventually be full-grown Cybertronians. And the second reason why I conclude it's energon is because, in all the concept arts of Megatron in Africa, we can see that he gives a blue substance. And since we know that the main color of energon is blue during the original trilogy, I think it's safe to say that the substance Megatron gives to the hatchlings is energon. But now let's move on to why Megatron has a shotgun weapon instead of his trusty fusion cannon. And the answer to this is actually quite simple. The reason why Megatron does not want to have his fusion cannon arm anymore is because he did not want to have a repeat of what happened in his last battle with Optimus Prime. And he feared that having that weapon would yet again result in that outcome. And to further back this up, Megatron is ashamed of his damaged face, and he hides it with a cloak to be less shameful. So when it was time to get a new weapon, he updated his schematics to give him a shotgun weapon, since it would be hard to have an accidental shot to the face due to how long it was. And if all else failed, he could easily just drop the weapon and it wouldn't fire in his face. Now let's move on to our last and final topic. How did Megatron construct his base in Namibia? Well, he built it by stealing various things. At his camp, we can see that he has a lot of oil drums, parts from a Decepticon fighter ship, an abandoned truck that he uses as a chair, a stolen military vehicle, and lots of junk. And like how when he put up the tent, he used parts of a Decepticon fighter and an abandoned crane to suspend it up into the air. And it makes you believe that Megatron really threw this all together, which I think is very cool. To build off of this, remember how I said that Starscream went to the Nemesis? Well, around the time that he came back, most of the camp was done, and all he had to do was put the hatchlings into oil drums so they could develop. And just like that, that's how Megatron got rebuilt in Transformers Dark of the Moon. But before I go, I want to talk about a few fun facts about Megatron. In Dark of the Moon, we see that Megatron has spikes all over his windows, but later in Dark of the Moon, they are missing when he's driving in Chicago. In the Dark Moon game, the reason why Megatron has bull horns is because, for some reason, when the Megatron truck was transported, it had these horns installed on it. And I believe this image made it to High Moon Studios, where they would add the horns onto Megatron's truck mode. And the weird thing is that all the concept arts I could find for Megatron, he never had these horns on him. Which leads me to believe that Megatron possibly early in the script had a stealth force mode, but later that mode would be his permanent vehicle mode, which explains why he has the spikes and barred windows. And the last fun fact that I want to point out is, you can actually see the Megatron truck in real life. His location is at the Mack Truck Historical Museum in Pennsylvania. And just like that, that's how Megatron got rebuilt in Transformers Dark of the Moon. But before I go, I want to say a big thank you to MovieFlix Plus for joining my Patreon. And you can join too if you want, the link is in the description. And like always, if you enjoyed this theory in the Fixing Transformers collection, please give a like rating because it helped the channel a lot. And as always, it's been Trans Theories reminding you guys to never stop theorizing.
This summer, spend less time web surfing and more time surfing. Scan here for a chance to win a real vacation in this ad. Michelob Ultra Organic Seltzer. It's real. It's a taste.
The Hansons are going wherever the open road takes them, and no matter where they end up, they'll be about 10 minutes from a hotel by Wyndham. The Morgans are soaking up the sun and the smiles. 10 minutes from a hotel by Wyndham. Amy and Eric traded video calls for the call of the wild, and still 10 minutes from a hotel by Wyndham. With over 6,000 hotels you can count on, whatever you're checking out, check into a hotel by Wyndham. And when you stay 2 or more nights, earn a free night. Book direct at wyndhamhotels.com.
Hey guys, Trans here, back another Transformers theory. And in today's theory, we're going to be covering what happened to the twins during Dark of the Moon, thanks to your guys' vote of 64%. Now, if you don't remember who the twins were, here's a quick recap on them. The twins, better known as the notorious Skids and Mudflap, made their debut in Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, for them being part of the first wave of Autobots, whom included RC, Elita 1, Chromia, Sideswipe, and Wreckers. But once they came down, they were stationed at Nest, while Wreckers were moved to be stationed at NASA to work on the Autobot ship Byzantium, which would later bring down the second wave of Autobots. But back in Nest, the twins would start their Autobot training in Diego Garcia, where it would take the form of a beaten-up ice cream truck, but because they scanned it both at the same time, it allowed them to combine, and they would use it as their vehicle mode during training. And that's all the events between Transformers 2007 and Revenge of the Fallen for the twins. But moving on into Revenge of the Fallen, the twins, along with Sideswipe, RC, Chromia, and Elita 1, were sent to Shanghai to take out any Decepticon activity in the area. The twins would play as decoy to lure in any Decepticons in the area, and once the Decepticon scout Sideways showed up, the twins were hot on his tail, until they turned a corner at such a high speed, which forced the two to separate, which sparked an argument between them shortly after. And once all Decepticon targets in the area were terminated, the Autobots went back to Nest HQ, where the twins would receive 2 new vehicle forms, which would give them the advantage of not being stuck together as one. And later in Revenge of the Fallen, the twins would group up with Bumblebee to take Sam to a remote location, so the Decepticons would not be able to find him, which would lead them to eventually go to Egypt to hunt for the Matrix of Leadership. And in one point of their journey, Mudflap loses all hope once they make it to the supposed location of the Matrix and is nowhere to be found. And this sparked an argument between Skids and Mudflap, which would lead them into a fight, which would end up Skids throwing Mudflap into a wall, cracking it, where it led Sam and the gang to the Tomb of the Primes, where the Matrix of Leadership was in its resting place. And after finding the Matrix, the twins, along with Bumblebee and their human allies, departed, making their way to where the military was stationed, so they could use the Matrix of Leadership to revive the Autobot leader, Optimus Prime. But during this journey, they ran into a complication, and that complication was Starscream. And to protect the Matrix of Leadership from Starscream's grasp, Skids and Mudflap, along with Simmons and Leo, acted as decoy to lure Starscream away from Bumblebee, Sam, and Michaela. But during this decoy, it ended up attracting the unwanted attention of the Constructicons, whom attacked by combining into Devastator and started to vacuum up their surrounding area, which led to Mudflap losing his grip and flying into Devastator's mouth, leading to Skids, Leo, and Simmons to believe that he died. But this would not be the case in a twisted turn of events when Mudflap shot his way out of Devastator's head and started smacking him in the eye, to wear him down and to distract him, so any other humans in the area would have the chance to evacuate. Then Skids took the chance to help his twin by climbing up Devastator's arm and launching out his grapple hook, so Mudflap could get down safely. And once they got to a safe point on Devastator's arm, Mudflap accidentally shot Skids in the face, sending both of them down to the ground, which would be the last scene for the twins in Revenge of the Fallen. But since they appear in Dark of the Moon, we can conclude that they did not get killed by Devastator, so how did they escape from Devastator and where did they end up? Well, if we look at the scene where Devastator climbs the pyramid, it is proven that Skids and Mudflap led Leo and Simmons to safety by standing under Devastator until they had enough clearance to escape from. And that opening was where Devastator started to climb out of the construction pit, because since Devastator had to use at least one of his legs to climb out, it would have given Skids and Mudflap more than enough clearance room to escape, which they did successfully, proven by a line that Simmons says, as we can see, Simmons says let's get these wounded clear from the ferry, and then he points off screen. Now by using this info, we can determine that the thing that he points to is the twins. And to further back this claim up, as we saw when Devastator was climbing the pyramid, there was no other ground vehicles in the area to transport the soldiers to safety, which meant that Skids and Mudflap were we can see that there are 5 soldiers in the helicopter. 1 is on the ground, 2 pilots, and 2 passengers. The Chevy Trax, which is Mudflap's vehicle form, can hold up to 5 people, if you count the middle seat between the 2 back passenger seats. And a Chevy Beat, which is Skids' vehicle mode, can hold up to only 4 people, since the back seat is way too small to hold up 1 person. And in later models, it was swapped into a cup holder. And with this information in mind, Skids would have 4 soldiers loaded up on him, while Leo would load up the last remaining soldier into Mudflap, where he would later go into the driver's seat of it. And a soldier with him would tell him how to take a safe route back to the military camp, where later the twins would load off the military soldiers at the camp, so medical assistance could attend to them. And after the twins stayed back at the camp to scout out for any remaining Decepticons in the area, so they could take them out. And because of this is why we saw Leo and Simmons at the end of the film with the military soldiers by the camp. And the last thing that happened to the twins during Revenge of the Fallen was, once the battle was done, they were loaded on an aircraft carrier ready to go home along with all the other Autobots. And finally moving on to the events between Revenge of the Fallen and Dark of the Moon for the twins. During this time, Ness gave Skids and Mudflap 2 new updated alternate modes, which would be a green and orange Chevy Spark, each with their own corresponding color as a stripe, which would make the twins become more stealthy in combat. And also during this time, they would resume their training with Nest at the Autobots' new base in Washington, D.C., disguised as a Health and Human Services building. And finally, moving on to the main course of this video, Dark of the Moon. Now in Dark of the Moon, the twins are seen very briefly in the background behind Wheeljack, and then even more briefly in the scene behind Sideswipe. And then after that short scene, gone, never to be seen again, not even mentioned by any of the other Autobots. Not even the comics can help us out here, since they were killed by Sentinel Prime, and that obviously did not happen in the film. Until today, I figured out what actually happened to the twins and how they were actually killed by Sentinel Prime. And it all starts during the freeway chase. As we can see, Sideswipe, Bumblebee, and Dino are escorting Sentinel Prime back to base, while protecting him from the Dreads, and the Dreads will come into play in a minute. As we saw in Dark of the Moon, Hatchet gets killed, and the 2 remaining Dreads, Crankcase and Crowbar, are chasing after Dino and Sideswipe. But not Bumblebee, since he was still at the bridge with Sam, letting him recuperate after what happened. And since Bumblebee was not at the city area with Dino and Sideswipe yet, they called in Ironhide for backup. Well, later, him and Sideswipe would take out Crankcase and Crowbar, making their way back to Nest. And this is where Skids and Mudflap will come into play shortly. As we see in the Nest scene, Dino goes inside, while Bumblebee goes to the right gate, along with Sentinel Prime and Ironhide. And since we do not see Sideswipe again from the shot until the Exile scene, he probably went back inside Nest as well. And later, after Sentinel Prime betrays the Autobots by killing Ironhide with the Cosmic Rust Cannon, he escapes to find where the humans put the pillars. And here's where Skids and Mudflap will come into play. As we heard from Lennox, the last thing that he said was, "We don't have enough men! Do not engage Sentinel!" And with that info in mind, we can determine that the Autobots at the Nest base got the memo. And the ones that were able to evacuate the base would be Ratchet, Dino, Sideswipe, and Wheeljack, since we would later see them once they would get exiled from Earth. But Skids and Mudflap would not be seen anywhere during that, which would mean that they would have to bite the dust. But how? Well, as we saw after Lennox gives his warning to the Nest soldiers, Charlotte Meering pulls up to the back gate of Nest, where we would later see Sentinel Prime going on a rampage, demanding the humans to give back his pillars. But as we see in the shot, there's already a path of destruction behind him, and this is where I believe Skids and Mudflap bit the dust. After receiving Lennox's warning, Ratchet, Wheeljack, Sideswipe, and Dino evacuated through the back gate of Nest, since they were closer to it. And since Skids and Mudflap were continuing their training at the time of the warning, they evacuated through the front gate, since it was the closest exit to them. But this would become fatal since they would meet face to face with Sentinel Prime, since he too would have to use the front gate while entering Nest. And after this weird encounter, I believe that the twins would ask Sentinel Prime what was going on, since they were not the most brightest ones. In response to this question, Sentinel Prime would pull out his rust cannon and shoot Mudflap, making him fly back because of the impact. Seeing that his twin brother was down, Skids lunge at Sentinel, but this would prove to be ineffective since Sentinel would pull out his sword before Skids would be able to hit him. And with a swift movement,
it's gonna be beautiful.
The Carava family came here from Italy over 100 years ago. They brought the notion that great Italian food could feed the appetite and the soul.
Have you ever wondered why Transformers have so many different colors of energon? Let's theorize.
With pleasure, Megatron.
today we're going to take a look at the origins of Berserker, Dreadbot, Onslaught, and Mohawk. So without further ado, let's jump right in. So as a brief recap, these Decepticons made their debut in Transformers the last night, where all besides Berserker would be broken out of jail by Megatron and served to be part of his crew. They would help Megatron out up until the town battle, where they were all killed off. So it would be easy to say that these characters were just a villain being killed off, which is kind of sad. It is further proven with their reused models, the exception being Mohawk. But what if I told you that these reused models actually served a purpose and gave insight on the backstories of these characters? So for me to prove my point that there was an insight behind these characters, let's take a look at Transformers Dark of the Moon, since Onslaught, Berserker, and Dreadbot's models appear here. Let's start off with Onslaught. You can clearly see that his design was a retool of Longhaul's, and the reason why this makes sense is because Longhaul's body type is also a Decepticon protoform type, proven by the fact that we see one of the Longhaul protoforms scan a waste management truck. And though we can easily speculate that there were multiple Longhaul protoforms, I'd say that the one that became Onslaught is the one that we're looking at right now. That is because of the relative size of what the protoform was scanning. Let me explain. According to this Transformer skill chart, a Mack waste management truck is 31 feet long. Now if we look at Onslaught's Western Star tow truck alternator, it's 37 feet long. But here's the kicker. If we look at these two vehicles side by side, we can see that the garbage truck is much bigger, where the tow truck is much longer. Now why is this important, you may ask? Well, the garbage truck's hopper, the part where the trash is stored, is hollow, and it's also very tall, while the tow truck in contrast is more dense. So what I'm trying to say here is, if garbage truck Onslaught wanted to switch out of his temporary vehicle form and do something more sleeker, he'd be able to, since the hollow hopper, the garbage truck, become a densely packed tow truck flatbed along with the boom. So with that explanation in mind, I hope it helps show you how Onslaught has enough mass to become a garbage truck, which is a much taller and hollow vehicle, along with becoming a tow truck, which is shorter and longer, but also a denser vehicle. Now, the last thing I want to say is, and this probably is a coincidence, but do you think it's funny that both Onslaught and this protoform are green and white, along with the fact that the garbage truck and the tow truck have 3 wheels that are on the ground, with one being raised? Well, I guess that's just food for thought. Now let's move on to Berserker and Dreadbot. And for them, you can easily tell that they're designed for retools from crowbar and crankcases. Now, we know for a fact that they are not crankcase and crowbar, since we clearly saw Crowbar get shot in the face with his lifeless corpse smoking on the ground. And Crankcase got his face blown up by his own bomb. So we can put the nail in the coffin. These guys are not the same characters. But to answer your question on why they look so similar is because they are Dread protoforms. Let me explain. The Dread protoform is a body type within the protoform family. They are usually more animalistic, with some of them preferring to walk on all fours, and this can be seen through their movements, along with their overall design. An easy way to tell them apart from the standard Decepticon protoform is by their facial design. The Dread protoforms usually have 4 eyes, while the standard ones only have 2. So with that out of the way, we can conclude that Berserker and Dreadbot came from the Dread protoform family, and most likely came down during the events in Dark of the Moon. And now you may be saying, trans, did all the protoforms die in Dark of the Moon battle? My answer to this would be no. It is because literally hundreds of protoforms came down when Sentinel opened the portal, with some just walking out of the portal, while others were stationed on motherships, and the bulk of the Decepticon forces were stationed in Chicago. But if you remember in the film, we heard Sentinel say there are hundreds of pillars, and the reason why this is important is because Sentinel sent out hundreds of Decepticons around the world to spread the pillars around here.
Where are the pillars? You saved quite enough, including the control room. Only 5? We once had hundreds.
You're spreading hundreds of pillars around the globe right now. So with that in mind, we know that there would be hundreds of protoforms who sent pillars.
Oh shit.
And I think it's reasonable to say that not all of them made their way back to Chicago, since we would have seen an army easily double the size of what we saw in Dark of the Moon. And you could say that the Protoforms got something back into Cybertron once the control pillar was destroyed. But I'm going to have to say no to this as well, since in Age of Extinction we saw many of the Decepticon ships that crashed, landed, or still on Earth, with average everyday humans getting their hands on them. But to fully push my point on how Decepticon protoforms are all over the world, take a look at this quote. As you can see, there are protoforms all the way up to Japan. Now, though this doesn't specifically state that the Decepticon fighter ships were left there, but I would have to say that they were, since the portal was open in Washington, D.C. And how would the protoforms get to various continents around the globe without a ship? So with all that info left on the table, I believe it concludes that the protoforms were scattered around the globe, and that Berserker and Dreadbot were highly likely to be participants in transporting the various pillars to different continents, for them to not be involved in the Battle of Chicago, thus not being killed. And this statement holds true for Onslaught too, since it could have been very well one of the many Decepticons helping transport the pillars all around the globe. And to back this statement up, Onslaught at this time is a...
The Marvel series What If is certified fresh. Thanks! It has shocks, surprises, and performances that rank up there with the MCU's greatest hits. Ready? What If? Original series now streaming only on Disney Plus.
My name is Dr. Tara Graff, and I feel that CalQuenz is an excellent option.
And he would definitely be able to fit a couple of pillars in his storage compartment. And this idea was actually used by another Transformer in Dark Fate. That Decepticon being Loader, they used this vehicle mode to store pillars for transport. So it's not that far-fetched to say that Onslaught could have done the same. But now it's into the question how Onslaught, Berserker, and Dreadbot got their updated alternate forms. Well, for Dreadbot, it's very easy to explain. I think along the way when he went to a different country, he's getting a Volkswagen Type 2 T1 microbus as a more definitive and personalized alternate form. This would cause him to get rid of his temporary vehicle form, which was most likely a police cruiser. Now, though it's never explained how Dreadbot's vehicle mode got rusty, I like to think that when he was hiding from Cemetery Wind, he went into stasis lock, which is basically a sleep mode for Transformers, like Optimus did in Age of Extinction, and gradually over time became rusty. And this rust theory is not that far-fetched, since in the movie timeline, Dark of the Moon is set in 2012, with Age of Extinction being set 5 years later. So if in those 5 years just sitting somewhere, it could have easily become rusty. Or as an alternate theory similar to Megatron, he scanned the Volkswagen bus while it was rusty, and thus the rust became an attribute of his robot mode. But out of these two theories, it's up to you which one you prefer. Now for Berserker, this is where it gets a little bit tricky, since we never fully saw what vehicle he was. And the concept art doesn't really help us out either, since the only thing that we can see is some sort of off-road tire. Now Berserker's toy adaptations have shown that he is a police Suburban, like the rest of the Dreads. But this is where I have to disagree. Since if Berserker scanned the exact same vehicle that Crankcase scanned, then his color should exactly match what Crankcase looks like. But as we can see, that is not the case. Besides his red tattoos and green energon, his base color looks to be a light gray, with having a darker color in his legs, along with the fact that his dreadlocks are lesser and smaller than Crankcase's. So at the end of the day, I personally believe that Berserker is not a police Suburban, but actually a silver Suburban that is limited. Hence why we see more of an off-road look in his tires, with the silver parts being an attribute of his vehicle color, and the more darker lower legs being the chassis of the Suburban, explaining why he's darker in color. And the last thing I want to say to you guys about Berserker is, if we would see him transform, where do you think the red parts would go on his vehicle mode? Last but not least, let's move on to how Onslaught got his vehicle. And while this vehicle was specifically made for Transformers the last night, and the first images of it ever shown was in August of 2016. So for the sake of this, let's say that Onslaught's Western Star 4900 SM tow truck came into manufacturing in 2016. And since Transformers the last night takes place no longer in 2022, then we can easily say that Onslaught realistically was able to scan his truck move before the events of the last night. Now my next point I'm going to say is going to be more or less speculation. On one of the Cemetery Wind kill cards, there is a robot named GarageBot, and on the card it shows an image of Longhaul, clearly not Onslaught. But on TF Wiki, GarageBot is classified as a Decepticon that scanned a waste management truck in Dark of the Moon, which in this theory is Onslaught. But here's the real kicker. GarageBot is not listed as deceased. And this would add up since Onslaught would have survived the events of Age of Extinction. But now the question is, why does this image show Longhaul? And why is his name GarageBot? Well, we think about it, Onslaught and Longhaul's designs are quite similar. So putting Longhaul in the card as a placeholder for what Onslaught would have looked like wouldn't be that far-fetched. They may be saying that the Longhaul that we saw in the final battle of Dark of the Moon is supposed to be GarageBot, but the only issue with this is, we clearly saw Longhaul get killed by Optimus. So in theory, if this was supposed to represent Longhaul, then the card should have said deceased. But to fully seal the deal, TFWiki states that GarageBot's name is a typo, missing a B, and should be spelled GarageBot, which then goes full circle on how this card is representing the Longhaul protoform that scanned the waste management truck, including Onslaught to be the waste management truck from Dark of the Moon. But now let's move over to Transformers the Last Night and talk about how Mohawk got hurt. And for him it's more trickier to find out, since he had to be on Earth no later than 2017, since that's where the events of Age of Extinction takes place. And at the end of AoE, we can speculate that's when Megatron formed his crew, from finding surviving Decepticons around the globe. And this is where Mohawk comes into play. As we learned from Transformers the Last Night, Cybertronians keep on coming to Earth, and over the years it's been speeding up. And although we do not know when this mass immigration started, we can easily suggest that it started sometime after Age of Extinction. And I believe that Mohawk was one such immigrant who came down from Cybertron Earth during the mass immigration. And once he landed, he would scan his 2016 Confederate Motorcycles P-51 combat fighter, and eventually be found by Megatron, ultimately joining his crew. And just like that, that's the origins of Berserker, Onslaught, Dreadbot, and Mohawk. But I'm not done yet, since I want to...
I'm Jason Day, husband, father, and son to my amazing mum, Denning, who lives with...
I am Cortessa. Cry,
Welcome back, Autobots. Lost Decepticons and everything in between to another episode of Fixing Transformers. And in today's we're going to take a look at if Quintessa is the creator of the Transformers. So without further ado, let's jump right in. So the Transformers community is conflicted when asked if Quintessa is the creator of the Transformers. She has the powers of a god, being able to mind control others to do her bidding. On the contrary, she's called the Great Deceiver and calls herself the Prime of Life. But when Optimus was killed, the Fallen said that the last Prime was dead. And that is far from out of contradiction if she's the creator or not. Since Age of Extinction brought up the idea of multiple creators, when Lockdown said the creators want a Prime back. But when we take a look at The Last Night, Quintessa's the only creator. So that said, the movie's made a mess with diving into the topic of a creator. So today I'm going to iron out all these inconsistencies into a hopefully straightforward answer, and give a definitive explanation on who the creator is. And the first step to answering that, we need to know who and what Quintessa is. Quintessa was introduced to us in Transformers The Last Night. It is the Vader's interpretation of a Quintessa. She claimed to be Optimus Prime's creator and the Prime of Life. Those two details will come in the shapeshift into a human, but most importantly having in-depth knowledge about Unicron, which Optimus Prime knew existed, but didn't know he was Earth. But as I said earlier, she's called the Great Deceiver by her 12 Guardian Knights. So how much about her is really true? And what answer this, I believe that she is a creator, but not the only one, who went rogue to carry out her ruthless, genocidal, psychopathic delusions of being a goddess. And here's why I believe this to be true. The first thing I have to prove to you guys is why she is a creator. One evidence that points to this is her abilities. For example, Sensei Vivian, when she found her staff, knowing when Optimus was coming to see her, being able to shapeshift along the fly, being able to shoot out lightning like Emperor Palpatine, and for staff, being able to make anything. Now you could say that she's just a very powerful being, not connected to the creators of the Transformers, who pretend to be involved with them. But here's where I have to disagree. As you know, she knew about Unicron being the Earth. No other Transformer besides Megatron knew this, where he learned it from Quintessa, along with Nitro, who learned it from Megs.
This you call Earth has another name. Unicron.
Earth. Unicron. Cybertron's ancient enemy.
What have you done?
The humans will decide their own fate.
Another reason why she is a creator is because she single-handedly was able to fix Cybertron and bring life back to it. As we saw in Dark of the Moon, Cybertron's original size was huge, around 3 times the size of the Earth. Once the control pillar was destroyed, it got sucked back into the wormhole, collapsing in on itself, destroying the planet. But when we take a look at The Last Night, Cybertron is just a little bit bigger than the Moon. And since we know that Quintessa was the only one on Cybertron during that time, we can conclude that she fixed the planet with the remaining parts and pieces from the destroyed Cybertron to form Cybertron 2. And the most amazing part about this is that she didn't use her staff. Since if you remember, her staff was
forward. We are no longer Cybertronians who are stranded on another world. Now,
set in
we are a part of Earth.
With The Last Night taking place no later than 2022. With that said, Quintessa would have around a 9-year window to fix Cybertron into her own image, taking her longer to pull off without her staff of power, but nevertheless that's pretty impressive. And remember how I said that she brought life back to Cybertron? Well, if we look carefully, we can see vegetation in the form of grass growing all over it, along with some dirt as well. And sadly, since the Bayformers are now discontinued, we never get to see what Cybertron 2 would have fully looked like in Rise of Unicron. Now you may be thinking, how does rebuilding Cybertron prove that Quintessa is a creator? Well, if you remember, in Age of Extinction we learned that the creator used seeds to cyberform thousands of planets, and use that metal to make the Transformers.
The thousands of planets were cyberformed with seeds. They turn pure organic life into our elemental lineages. Our creators destroying the world. Like us.
With that said, we can conclude that transforming was not only used to build Transformers, but also to build Cybertron. That's why thousands of planets were needed to create Cybertron. So with that in mind, for someone to rebuild Cybertron, they would need the knowledge of how it was constructed, and with her having that information, proving by the fact that she was able to Frankenstein it back together, it points to the fact that she is a creator. Another reason why she is a creator is because she has the ability to heal Transformers. For example, when Prime first confronted Quintessa, he was still battle damaged from his fight with Lockdown, evident because he still has a stab marking in his chest. But in a later scene with Quintessa, Prime is all fixed, concluding Quintessa being the only reason why Prime was fixed. To further push his point, he turned Galvatron back into Megatron. And to learn more about that, check out my What Happened to Galvatron video to learn more. With that said, only a being that has insight on how Transformers were made can also be able to fix them. And keep in mind, Quintessa was able to heal both of them without her staff, and I'll cover what the staff does in a bit. But now let's move on to who are the other creators. Now you may be thinking they were alien hand-looking things, but here's where I have to disagree. According to Prime, the creators cyberformed thousands of planets, and to pull this off, the creators would need millions of ships and billions of seeds. Now why would the creators themselves go out of their way to do this monstrous task, when they could easily create henchmen to do the job for them, while they oversaw how the project was going? With that in mind, we can rule out the alien hand creatures as being the creators.
So what did the other creators look like? Well, based upon what Quintessa looks like, we can infer that the other creators look similar to her. Small alien-like beings with immense power. As for what species they are, thanks to Concept Art Inferno last night, we now know that they are the Bayverse versions of Quintessons. Now before I move on to what happened to the other creators, I want to clear up some confusion with the Allspark, and how it connects to the creators. As we know, the Allspark has no proper origin, being created before time. Now though the Quintessons could have created the Allspark, I think it's highly unlikely, since the Allspark has the power to create worlds, fill them with life. With that said, there'd be no reason to create all that transformium to build Cybertron and the early Transformers.
Oh shit.
Do it all for them. I think the creators found the Allspark sometime after the completion of Cybertron and used it to grant life to the early Cybertronians, which included the original 7 primes. Hence why most of the Transformers that we see throughout the 5 films have some sort of Cybertronian marking on them.
They knew it was alien because of actually hieroglyphics on the as well as in V1.
And I'll be going into more detail about this in my Protoform Misconceptions video. But now the last question about the Allspark would be, why would the creators leave it on Cybertron? Now there could be many reasons for this. As in many other continuities, the Transformers revolted against their creators, driving them from the planet. But since that's never mentioned in Bayverse lore, I'm going to say that outcome did not happen. But the most likely one being that the creators left it on Cybertron. And here's why. After harnessing the Allspark's power, the creators would make many objects that imitate its power. For example, the Staff of Power is like a miniature Allspark. As Quintessa states, the staff is her power of creation.
My power of creation.
What the hell? There was a DLC costumes?
Way to bring life back to Cybertron.
I did not know this. What the fuck?
You can also heal Cybertron, which sounds a lot like the Allspark. With that in mind, the creators most likely made many artifacts that imitated what the Allspark could do, leaving the Allspark useless to them, since they had multiple miniature versions of it. Hence why
oh shit, I can make them hit the butt. Wait. I'm gonna start from the bottom up because now I want to see them transform.
Leaving me to speculate on what happened to them. My best guess would be that Quintessa wanted to take control of Cybertron for herself, along with killing Unicron, an ancient being that terrorized Cybertron once in the past.
Oh wow, secret jets.
Sensing that Unicron would eventually strike again, along with her lust for power, Quintessa would go rogue and rebel against her fellow creators. And for being the strongest of the creators, along with
Mortal Master.
created the first Cybertron.
That's a big bitch.
Killed the other creators. Now the reason why I'm being very broad here is because I'm going to flesh out this storyline in my Who Said Lockdown video, since I think the creators made Lockdown to counter Quintessa's Knights. Hence why I was able to capture them all, along with Knight's Misconceptions. That's going to flesh out all the 12 Guardians.
Cassette tapes.
So stay tuned for when those drop. So with all that information,
that shit's funny.
I hope it shows your guys' perspective that she is a creator, but not the only one. But now let's take a look at the opposition and see why she's called the Great Deceiver. Now this line, the Great Deceiver, was said by a Guardian Knight upon realizing that Optimus aided Quintessa. So how much about Quintessa isn't true? Well, the first thing I can point out is that she's not—
damn, this motherfucker's a gun.
Prime as the Cybertronian leader. Since when Optimus was killed, the Fallen said that the
Megatron tank.
And you could make the argument that Sentinel was not technically dead on the Ark, but he was basically dead in the fact that without the Matrix replenishing his energon, Sentinel Prime would have never woken up from his moonfication.
Oh wow, that's a— damn! That's a Dark Optimus. Grimlock. And they made him too fat in this game.
And I highly doubt Quintessa would have been dead during 2009, since roughly around 4 years later, she starts to reconstruct Cybertron. So with that in mind, she's definitely lying about being a Prime. But if we interpret the meaning of Prime into something else, other than the Cybertronian leader, then she may be telling the truth. Since what if she was the rank of Prime among the other Quintessons? With her being the strongest of the bunch, and possibly their leader, this would line up for Claim being the Prime of Life, since her artifact is the Staff of Creation, which is used for life. And since she's the Prime among the group, she's
that's the Optimus I know.
The Prime of Life. So that said, depending on the interpretation of the way she uses Prime, it could go either way. But the reason why she's viewed as the Great Deceiver by her 12 Guardian Knights is because the Knights found out something that she lied to them about, something they